Hello and welcome to the session on Best Sustainability Practices in Action. In this session, we'll be exploring the current state of sustainability in the mining industry in Kazakhstan. Which challenges are most acute for the mining industry in Kazakhstan? Is it the focus on maximizing profits at any cost, low production efficiency, or perhaps the high level of environmental pollution? Which practices are most important for achieving sustainability in your enterprise? Energy-saving technologies, renewable energy sources, or maybe land reclamation and ecosystem restoration? We have invited top experts to address these hotly disputed questions. Are you ready to make a positive impact as well? We invite you to participate in our sustainability survey. Please scan the QR code to open the questions. Your participation is completely voluntary, and your responses will be kept confidential. Thank you.
Еще раз здравствуйте.
Good afternoon, welcome to the ESG session. We have quite a few participants. You will have 10 to 12 minutes per presentation. If you have questions, feel free to give them right after the presentation, and we'll also have Q&A at the end, and this is when we will present the results of the survey. Our first speaker is Oleg Zakharov, Operational Efficiency Director at ERG. Give presentation 5 mechanisms to increase operational efficiency. Good afternoon, colleagues. So not all of the seats have been taken, so those are here, those who have survived lunchtime. It's my pleasure to have you here. I represent ERG, one of the largest KMG companies. So ERG has more than 60,000 employees. It has 5 large units: chrome, iron, aluminum, coal, and energy. A few words about myself. Now I'm head of operational efficiency. Operational efficiency is something I've been working on for the last 15 years. Prior to ERG, I worked at a large metallurgical company where we were working on developing its system, and in 2019 this company received the highest score as part of Toyota audit. Since 2019 I've been working at ERG. We are building production system of our own with efficiency in mind. So why do we talk about sustainable development? Lately we've had crisis upon crisis, and how companies respond to those, whether they are ready or not to respond to those, is what matters, because either they adapt or they die. Here, the ones that are highlighted, whose names are given in bold, those are our leaders. And the companies that are highlighted in gray are those who fell off. And I think Toyota would be a good example. Why? Not only do they promote innovation, this company has put a lot of effort into increasing efficiency. Toyota is a company that has as little waste as possible. ERG, since 2019, it's been refining its production system with the goal of ensuring as much efficiency as possible for its processes. And as we were designing our system, our vision was that there would be 3 avenues. For a business to be efficient, we need to have streamlined processes. However, in our case, it is people who took the first spot. That's why our first principle is proactive community. It's all about the people, how driven they are, how many mistakes they make. The second thing is processes. And the third one, which is often overlooked, well, things are in a state of flux, but we need to have rules, because rules is what minimizes the risk of error. And if we take a look at the best production systems, we will see that using rules is what ensures a company's success. As for our achievements, over the last couple of years, we've provided training to many of our employees, training on efficiency and system development. 6,000 people received training, with 75% of all employees having received at least some training in some area. As for how proactive our employees are, well, 5 years ago we would receive 1,000 or 2,000 ideas from our employees on how to increase efficiency. Last year we received 120,000 ideas, which resulted in $150 million saved or gained. This is thanks to the proactive stance of our community. And now our system is formalized, it is based on a standard, we have the ability to run measurements and to see in which direction do we need to progress. Same applies to the process. Experience and technical issues. One important thing is you need to prioritize personnel and training. So you need to teach people how to do things. And quite often you just demand that people should do something without having taught them first. In our case, we established a special school, which is part of the corporate university, which helped us to disseminate this necessary knowledge on how to increase efficiency. We created a pyramid for increasing efficiency at various levels. So as an employee, you can share your ideas, can join a Kaizen team. This is when employees get together to address issues. As we get to higher levels, to the medium levels, each head of department needs to come up with a vision, what they intend to do. We also have cross-functional teams operating at almost all of the levels, implementing efficiency projects. Another thing is that efficiency needs to be measured. It's paramount that it should be done. That is why we decided to do it as part of assessing the efficiency of our equipment. And we do the metallurgy and the mine. And what it enables us to do is that, well, we are able to assess how much waste we generate, where or how much resource gets wasted. There are people in this room who have worked with me before, and they remember me to be overweight, was much larger than I was, and I tried many diets, tried to work out. It never worked, but then I decided to start measuring my food to see how much I ate. And remember, during the pandemic, basically there were two locations for all of us: your sofa and your fridge. This is when things got critical, so I started to do measurement, and this is what has enabled me to lose 30 kilograms. Same applies to companies. You need to have quality measurement to see what could be improved. I realize I ran out of time, so I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Questions? Well, if not, you can give your questions at the end of the session. If I may, so here it says you have special efficiency department or efficiency faculty for leadership. So do you do trainings for leadership so that they would be able to get better understanding of ESG? Well, we do have this department, and indeed they provide training, but in our case it is leadership who we focus on first, so they go to the same school as employees. Any other questions? Good afternoon. You say that your employees last year generated a total of 120,000 ideas, which enabled your company to save 150 million US dollars. So what incentives do you have for people to generate and share ideas? And what's the implementation ratio? I think currently the ratio is at 75%. Well, there are big ideas that require several years to be implemented. As for the incentives, well, we incentivize people to give their ideas. It's 5,000 tenge per idea. And if your idea has economic effect, you can get as much as 10% of its economic impact. So we will be doing impact monitoring for a year, and this is when you will be able to receive your share. So the idea currently is that we do estimates, we give you 10% of what we expect it to be, and then a year later we will run an assessment and we'll give you additional money if necessary. Another incentive is that, well, another 10% will go to the unit from which this idea came. So you say that the ratio is 75%, 75% of all the ideas generated were implemented? Yes. It's not perfect, but over the last couple of years we rose from 50% to 75%. Of course, there is room for improvement. Thank you. Our next speaker is Aidar Kazabayev, General Director at Global ESG Partnership and a partner National Corporate Governance Academy. The presentation's key stages in ESG transformation stages in mining. Thank you. ESG Partnership is ecological.kz, company that runs carbon footprint assessment. It's National Corporate Governance Academy, who prepare independent directors. And our partnership aims to develop mechanisms that could be used in various areas of our economy. So each industry is unique. So for service companies, ESG is one thing. For mining companies, it's another. And last year, when the mining chamber was established, we became part of it. We are a member. The goal, the mission of the chamber is to provide recommendations for the development of mining in Kazakhstan. And traditionally, it was seen as rather dirty area. At the same time, mining was. We see that now that we have green steel, things like that, with companies listed at the London Exchange. I think people are starting to realize that mining company needs to work toward becoming greener, toward protecting the environment. And now the quality of investment is assessed based on how environmentally friendly a mining company is. So, this transformation. All in all, this transformation is about changing your approaches. It's about embedding sustainable finance and sustainable design. Even as you start to do mining processing, you need to start using methods that not only decrease costs but also decrease CO2 emissions, and we see that based on current analytics, the companies that have in their portfolio bright examples of such transformation, they have better statistics in terms of stock price growth.
Major trends in the ESG COP28 in Dubai last year, and you know that there are those who promote to prohibit production of minerals altogether until the finalization of requirements. At the same time, there is a task force that is responsible for sustainable mining industry, and we continue to hear from some extreme environmentalists the ideas to prohibit production altogether. It gives us food for thought that companies have to consider best available technologies, caring about the health of human beings and preserving biodiversity. So back in 2023, there was a call on development of different reports proving that the company is committed to provide transparency in their production processes. Our expectations outlook for 2024. EU requirements will be strengthened to the companies. To certain companies, CBAM will be launched starting from January 2024, covering 3 sectors: mining, chemical, oil and gas, and construction. Oil and gas is not included yet. Therefore, our experts started to make calculations and projections of decarbonization, how much the company, based on specific scenario, will have to increase the price of shipping goods. Therefore, we started to apply this transboundary hydrocarbon tax. So speaking of the initiatives, we believe that initially investors have to decide the extent of green technologies allowing to catch CO2 emissions. We believe that energy efficiency plays a huge role in terms of the cost intensity, and circular economy of the countries, how effective the companies are, how they care about waste management, and enable circular economy. Let me explain why ESG is critical for the mining industry. First of all, because of the increase in critical minerals, in demand on critical minerals. You know, these are the issues that can be not produced directly. They relate to some tail storage infrastructure, preventive measures in terms of supply of non-certified products, green certificates, and transition to clean energy, proving that companies have access to renewables and use renewables. So Kazakhmys and ERG have become active in building solar and wind power plants to make sure that they feel the benefits of renewables in their economy. Transformation in the mining markets, KPIs should serve as the key indicator, and social responsibility relates to improvement of labor conditions, safety, and development of local communities. And corporate governance, the company has to take care of its suppliers, even if the company is green, but your subcontractors toxic or not non-compliant, non-ESG compliant, it can impact negatively the company's reputation. So ESG at the moment stands for the company's reputation. We know that there are GRI, TCFD that can use their capabilities and information, but the presence of the holding structure defines the critical importance of specific reports. Speaking of the key priorities, we are talking about the sources of energy, biodiversity, enabling industrial oases and planting trees around their deposits and production site, training and development of personnel, cooperation with the governments, and in local and global scale. Let me conclude and answer your questions accordingly. Thank you very much. Any questions, please? Let me ask a question then. You mentioned that CBAM is beginning to evolve, and you have some prospects, some projections that consider the impact of it on the future of the company, including investments. Are there any orientations or approximate projections? Well, if the current price on export of products, if the company fails to comply with the green certificates, the price increases by 21%. Why the EU does so? Because they rely on the companies that comply with the green technologies and green requirements. So this is the policy that is intended to align and find a balance between the EU and non-EU, such as Kazakhstan, China, and Russia, producers and suppliers. So these are different types of metal. It could be copper, it could be steel, and the difference totals 20%, but again, it depends on the way of production. Our next speaker is Viktor Davidov, who will address the issue of the satisfaction of growing demands among stakeholders in responsible production of minerals by complying with IRMA standard. Dear participants, welcome, greetings to all of you, those who I already talked to. Thank you for the introduction. Our company Answer is involved into consultations on social and environmental aspects pertaining to the introduction of the best practices. And today I'm going to talk about responsible production of minerals and taking one of the standards, standard IRMA. It is a brief presentation. I won't be able to cover everything. Therefore, well, you need to be trained to dive deeper into the topic, but I will try to be brief and explain the idea behind the introduction of these standards into the production processes. What are the challenges that a company can foresee while implementing the standard and complying with the standard in Kazakhstan? Why do we need it? We need to admit that nothing happened of nothing. I don't know any CEO of a company who would be personally interested to introduce best practices without having a clear idea in his or her mind. We understand that each company is interested in entering the new markets or attracting investors, project funds, projects financing, and so on, or make sure that their labor force is not prone to rotation. And we see a growing number of stakeholders. Stakeholders, it's the key word here. This slide shows a real example, a real case, which could be compared in terms of its size of business with ERG. In terms of the number of shareholders, and the company is steadily growing. Speaking of the mining sector, the stakeholders would include investors and many other stakeholders. All stakeholders, depending on their relationship with the company and the pressure that they can use to enable their interests within the company. They all concerned with the way the company manages its social and environmental risks, because their interests can be impacted accordingly. So to some extent, to make sure that the company is compliant and responsible and diligent, we see a lot of standards to comply with. You see some of them so that you can at least tap into the topic of standards. But you can look into the picture on the left side and understand how a person who is not familiar with the standards would consider the standards. It's like a hectic picture of many dots. You see different types of standards, rating methodologies, standards of financial organizations, European Bank, IFC, and so on. This is the whole galaxy, which is pretty heavy, pretty complicated, and the companies may feel lost, may get lost in them. In order to unify the requirements to responsible production, the standard IRMA was developed. It took more than 10 years of intensive consultations with all stakeholders, including businesses, mining companies, but also NGOs, and the standard is supported and promoted by almost 60 NGOs representing indigenous communities, local communities who are interested in promoting responsible businesses by the companies. So this standard is intended, first of all, for the stakeholders, for their compliance with expectations of the local communities, I would say. The standard is applied to all minerals apart from fossils. The standard consists of almost 400 requirements, which can be described in 4 major blocks, such as social responsibility, environmental responsibility, integrity, transparency, and planning and positive attitude of businesses. Speaking of the participants of IRMA, they are large mining businesses that own industrial facilities, industrial companies and also smaller companies at the initial stage of exploration. And also this includes the end users of the products. First of all, such giants as BMW, Mercedes, Tesla, electronics manufacturers, jewelry manufacturers like Tiffany, and so on. This slide shows the where IRMA stands with regard to the other standards, such as ICMM. You see the number of requirements in IRMA and ICMM. But let me emphasize from the very beginning that the number of requirements, larger number of requirements, does not mean that the company would experience a higher burden. I will explain later why I think so. If we refer to the IRMA criteria, it can be compared with the other standards, but the only difference here is it includes the ranking system depending on the company's compliance with requirements. So it includes IRMA Transparency, IRMA 50, IRMA 100. We see the parties to IRMA. Kazakhstan is not in this list, and it's good. It's an opportunity for one of you to become the leader, the pioneer in this area. Here is a map showing those who passed the audit, the IRMA audit. Their rank is awarded not to a company, but to in general, but to a specific deposit or business within the company, depending on where the assessment takes place. Benefits and challenges to use in Kazakhstan. Benefits include the fact that the standard is universal, has a universal nature, and its introduction will result in compliance and follow-up actions by all the majority of stakeholders. It can also attract new clients, reduce the risks, and improve the process of risks management, improvement of competences, because the standard promotes best practices in the area of ESG and competitive advantage for many companies. Although the challenges are present as well, the standard goes far outside the legal requirements, such as risks and impact assessments and management of specific elements such as waste management, water resources, burden, quality of air, social aspects, and others. And disclosure-related requirements and interaction with all stakeholders, including local communities which are affected by the mining industry at all stages. And recommendations. If you're thinking about the standard, this or any other standard to introduce in your practice, make assessments of review your stakeholders, have an informal self-assessment. First of all, start with self-assessment, which is informal. Do not go into the formal process, because you have to get prepared, which is not easy. Develop a plan on IRMA 100 achievement. There's no one who has achieved it yet. There's IRMA 25, IRMA 50, but for Kazakhstani companies, it is most likely that you will simply reach IRMA transparency, and your ultimate goal would be IRMA 50. Prioritize your actions. If IRMA 50 is your top priority for the next several years, then compare these actions with your action plan in general. because your ESG strategy can include some other action plans. And this plan has to be compliant with your other action plans.
Cost-benefit analysis is also something you need to do. And IRMA, it has 40 critical requirements. And to get IRMA 50, this is something you need to do. Cost-benefit analysis is. Should you have any questions on this standard or other standards, or questions related to implementation of best practices, I would be happy to address your concerns. Questions? Interpretation cannot be provided. IRMA does not mention that. However, I don't think you'll have to do it again. So long as the facility is the same, you see, this is not company-wide, this is facility-specific. So IRMA would be happy to give you further explanation. Good afternoon. So if we strive to meet all IRMA requirements, it means that our company needs to invest additional money into that. So it's only after you've done all of those things that you meet the criteria. At the same time, you investing that money means that you bear more costs. So the price of your products is likely to increase, which means you need to provide an explanation for your customers. And customers generally seek to procure products at a low cost, and not everyone is interested in seeing a green certificate. Well, that's why I said that you need to do cost-benefit analysis first to see what it is that your company needs to be in line with IRMA 100. However, to get to IRMA 50, you only need to meet 40 critical requirements and at least half of the rest. Well, yes, it does mean that investment is required, but I think to have major impact on your products, it would mean that you would have to take steps that would get you to IRMA 100. Getting IRMA to IRMA 50 means that you only need to do some minor things. You need to have environmental monitoring, you need to hire some people that would specialize in working with the community. Human rights also needs to be addressed. If I may. So, you mentioned that car companies, automotive ones, usually will have IRMA certification. So does it mean that Tesla, for instance, would have these requirements for their vendors? Yes. So one of our requirements is that whenever you join, you will demand, well, not demand, but it says encourage, but you would do it firmly. Encourage your vendors to meet this criteria as well. And I think in the future, it's likely to change from encourage to demand. IRMA is an independent standard. at the same time, we have many industry standards, ACMM, responsible mining, scope mark. So these organizations and the Mining Association of Canada, they've established a consolidated mining initiative. So their goal is to turn all that diversity that we have as standards to one single standard, to narrow it down to one document. What about IRMA, and what's the difference between the industry standards that are maintained by companies and IRMA? Well, there is certain competition between standards, but the emergence of a single consolidated one, in my opinion, and I say it after having meetings with businesses and institutions, well, first of all, many companies think that IRMA is way too complicated. To that, I will respond that, well, it is mining we are talking about. Mining is not an easy thing. I think this is indicative of a lack of competences within those companies. That's why they are unable to understand this criteria. Second thing is that companies see that IRMA 50 and IRMA 100, even more so, are unattainable for them. And that's why the standard that's being worked upon currently, well, we would be interested in comparing that to the IRMA one, and besides, we are currently working on amending our standards, so the new version will be called version 2.0, and we are collecting feedback from business, from institutions. The next speaker is Asel Kunadilova, head of industrial ecology at Nova Think. Nova Think does underground think mining, and the company has implemented a program for implementing cutting-edge technology. Good afternoon, distinguished participants. I am Asel Kunadilova, head of industrial ecology at Nova Think. We are a limited liability company established in 1997 at the Akjai deposit in Karaganda region, and unlike the previous speakers, I am someone who is implementing a new system. So we have two sites. Site number one, Akjal. Site number two is the settlement of Agadir. This is where our rotation camp is situated. So we do ore sampling, we also transport ore to the processing plant, we provide maintenance for the whole of the facility. We have two spent quarries, central one and the east one. Currently, apart from underground facilities, we also have some external dumps. We have tailing ponds from quarries, and all in all, it means that we've been damaging the environment. That's why we prioritize implementing cutting-edge technologies that would decrease our emissions and waste. In 2022-23, we implemented several initiatives. First, installing dust collecting equipment. Second, water treatment equipment for the Akjal settlement. Currently, we are working on establishing an evaporation pond, and as we were getting dust collecting equipment installed, the idea was that there would be pumps sending air into that equipment and thus purifying it. There will be also containers for treating waste water. There will be distributive tanks. There will be equipment for measuring how much water goes in and out, some treatment blocks, all kinds of additional tanks, including sediment ones. Will be treating sludge. There will be lighting, and installing this new container-based treatment units is in line with Ministry of Energy Decree number 55, the decree on with a list of best available technology. As Kazakhstan's transitioning to new industry norms, we are required to have monitoring of our emission volumes. Therefore, we decided to develop environmental safety strategy so that risks would be minimized, as well as CO2 emissions and sulfur dioxide ones. They have decreased 20% since 2020. Also, we have analyzed the work of the boiler unit, which has been producing a lot of emissions. We improved our gas treatment system. Our scientists did research, and their conclusion was that it was possible to integrate the boiler unit into the system. A design was developed enabling to decrease sulfur dioxide and CO2 emissions, as well as inorganic dust. Another thing would be to use the so-called thermic afterburner method, and these are the measures that we have taken to bring our facilities and equipment in line with the modern requirements. And this is to lead to decreases in environmental impact. The research that's been done will enable us to pick the right equipment under existing conditions, and based on that we have plans till the end of 2024. We are to receive approval for our design estimates on implementation of all of those initiatives. We would be happy to collaborate with you. Any questions? So, you improved your system. How much have your emissions decreased? Currently, so far we have done research on selecting the right technology for our facilities. And the expectation is that emissions will decrease by 20%. The sulfur dioxide and CO2. So you mentioned implementing the best available technologies. Recently, several guidelines were published on that. Have you done any analysis of what would be best to implement in your particular case? Another question I have is, your designers, are they ready to follow those best available technology guidelines in their work? Yes. As we develop terms of reference, the idea is that these designs need to be in line with the requirements set forth by the legislation and the things enshrined in those best available technology guidelines. And this is one of the reasons why we are building all those water treatment facilities. So, thank you. I think the key thing is to take care of it as you design your new facilities rather than having to redesign existing things. Indeed, this is exactly our policy. Alexander Parshin, presenting Irkutsk National Technical Research University. The presentation is accelerated geological prospecting with zero damage to the environment. Good afternoon. I represent a university, which puts me in a certain position. So universities are the things that have major impact on our future, because we train people, and these are the ones who will be working tomorrow. And when we see that something is not right, we introduce amendments into our standards, and this is how we address issues. And I'll give you an example of when we are dissatisfied with some things in our industry. Well, our university, it started out as Siberian Mining Institute, and we would do prospecting, and still prospecting is a major source of revenue for us, because we get our students involved into all internships. And when it comes to international rankings, we are proud of our position in UI Green Metric. We are ranked 162nd, which is indicative of our stance on the protection of the proactive stance on the protection of environment. Here you can see the work we do in Eurasia, and one of our major areas of focus is territories near Arctic, and these are very vulnerable. And there came a time when we started to get worried about something. So we've been talking about implementing ERG in mining. So basically we have a mining company, we have environment experts, we have audit. Even if we damage the environment, we generate enough revenue to make it right. But this is mining. Exploration is different. We understand that only 1 in 10 deposits that we work on will be used in the future. At the same time, we damage the environment wherever we go, because we use bulldozers, we cut down trees, do things like that. And this is something that is best avoided. So how can we work without damaging the environment? The first thing to do to prevent that is to do as little exploration as possible, which means that you need to pick the right area for licensing. And our university not only does it research, but it also is a subsoil user. I will not be talking about JS targeting, we've already discussed that. All in all, with Russia have been studied quite well, and with us having the ability to do aerial reconnaissance, we are able to select areas of proper sizes. The second thing is when we test our hypothesis. That is when we get to see that indeed this is exactly the way we expect it to be. This is when we do mapping using drones. We were able to use magnetic prospecting, gamma radiometry, and electrical prospecting, and thus enables us to get detailed information and avoid major blunders. Here's an example. You can see 3 maps, and investors have provided money for number 3, but this is when we realize that we need to do further prospecting and get to see that it was very different from what was expected. Another thing is that we use helicopters. This is how we cover an area of 10 to 20 square kilometers at a scale of 1 to 10,000, which is quite good. At the same time, for drones to be used, we had to develop special software that would be able to process massive amounts of data. It took a lot of effort from our side. Data interpretation, to be able to have that, you need to be able to do petrophysics properly. And the good thing about being a university is that you have a lab that is able to run measurements like that, and you have the cutting-edge equipment. So basically we do the same thing in the lab as we would do in the field. And which is not a common practice globally. So once we've developed detailed maps, for instance 1 to 5,000, now we need to test our hypothesis, to do geochemistry. What can be optimized in that regard? Usually samples would be taken, but if it is Arctic we are talking about, then you would be better off using geochemistry, because for the median concentration of metals in plants are likely to be much higher than in other areas. So you can send out small groups, which and they wouldn't have to be using peak access to get to the samples. No, it's much easier. You can just do geochemistry. And it's only once you've done that that you start to do drilling. Where to do it and in which direction. Drilling. To do that, you need heavy equipment. And quite often it's done in the winter, because in the summer you wouldn't be able to get it done. And we have developed several units that can be disassembled and assembled easily and can be transported by helicopters. They can drill down to 200 meters, and this is also in line with our legislation. And besides, so once this unit has been taken away, a month later you will just won't be able to you wouldn't even think that anything like that took place there. Quite often we will be working in parallel. It's geophysics and geochemistry, inversion, then drilling. So it takes you 3 months to cover an area of 100 to 200 square kilometers. Here's an interesting example. Core sample. It's perite, 3rd generation. So
And as a result, industrial concentration of this element in this specific case was not discovered. The projects are fast, but the project is environmentally friendly, but will not yield the results. 1 out of 10. But for us it was important to visit this beautiful place, and we left behind the same beautiful place. We don't have any reason to apologize for the future, in front of the future generations. With that, let me conclude. Questions? Let me ask one question on recultivation. You rightly noted that the northern ecosystems are sensitive. Do you do any recovery works? Because often the companies differ, and some of them may end up that they do not clean up. They do not clean the garbage and so on. We try to operate without any consequences, such as garbage creation, generation. We had some SLAM interim cleaning, and we tried not to destroy the ecosystem to avoid excessive recovery works after we are done. Our last speaker is Sergei Sabanov from Nazarbayev University Mining School, who is going to talk about sustainable mining development in Kazakhstan. Thank you for your introduction. Good afternoon, dear participants of this conference forum. I'm happy to greet you all. I'm also happy to thank the organizers for an excellent opportunity to participate and to present today. This is my presentation. I'm going to speak briefly about our university, about the mining school. School of Mining and Geosciences. I will touch upon the environmental, social, and governance issues, sustainable mine life cycle, and I will speak about the linkages between scholars and practices. Nazarbayev University is a modern, recently established university. We have 8 schools operating within the university. We have even a School of Medicine, School of Engineering, which includes the construction discipline, chemistry, and of course our School of Mining and Geosciences. Nazarbayev University is a research university. We do research in many fields with totaling almost 6,000 international publications. To be fully fledged researcher, we need to publish, and we publish elsewhere. Globally, we have almost 14% of publications in the top 10% of the most cited publications worldwide, which is quite a high rank. We do research with the students, and we have teaching labs. We have 270 labs as such, where the students are also engaged into research and co-author our publications. So you can find many names of our students in 1,100 publications with them. This map shows our cooperation links between universities all over the world. This year, according to the World University Rankings, Nazarbayev University has entered into the top 30 international research universities. So this is within the last 14 years. And of course, our School of Mining and Geosciences. It's one of our previous conference where our participants, our students, presented and got awards, which is another great indicator. We are trying to make sure our graduates are skilled and knowledgeable, working in Kazakhstan and outside. And we want to make sure that the students' knowledge and technology in technology is combined with the science. Our School of Mining and Geosciences focuses on 3 areas, which includes mining engineering, geoscience, and petroleum engineering. With the mining industry, we enjoy close collaboration. We enable internship for our students, and we try to hear from them what kind of benefits the companies can achieve by inviting our students and hiring our graduates. In line with the topic of today's session, where we discuss ESG aspects, how the company takes care of these aspects and how it promotes itself as an ESG compliant company. I think it would be relevant to look at the sustainable mine life cycle. If we're talking about environmental assessments, We need to take into account the impacts of the mining business, but also take into account the use of equipment, raw material, engineering, technologies, because they also contribute to emissions. It has to be taken into account as well. And the main three pillars, which includes environments, society, and economy. Nobody will be interested to participate in the business unless the economy is sustainable. Again, everything has to start with geological exploration, care about the environmental impact your company creates, and starting from the planning. At the planning stage, you have to foresee as many potential bottlenecks for the future as possible. And also you have to take into account what happens once your mine is over, once your deposit is exhausted and you're closing your projects. So from the companies, from the businesses, we expect to hear their problems, the challenges that they face, how they expect us to teach our students so that they make most use of our graduates. Well, again, if the company operates in Kazakhstan with foreign investors involved, they have to comply with international standards, and our students have to be aware of such requirements. Most importantly is to have an understanding between them and between the expectations and the quality of our graduates. So we want to have a close cooperation with the businesses so that our research work is also relevant. For example, in technologies, different technologies that are applied, modern technologies. And here you see some areas of cooperation in the fields with the automation process or VR, where you can where our students can be quickly trained to be able to contribute into the projects implemented by the companies. Joint participation in research activities. And be involved into practical implementation. The companies will definitely benefit of such cooperation. As I mentioned earlier, our publications, if they publish in cited magazines, they do have they are recognized as having value, and it can serve as a starting point for follow-up research to impact best practices in sustainable development in the mining industry, which again covers environments, corporate governance, safety, which is key. Economy is the last one to mention, to name, but not by investors. Investors prioritize it even before the safety. Our modules, well, we try to get accredited in the EBIT format, which requires the labor safety and labor protection and environmental protection modules and courses. And our School of Mining will strive to develop practical solutions for the mining businesses, which can be adequate and convenient to address the problems that the companies face. With that, let me conclude. Thank you very much, Sergey. Please, your questions. Okay, then I have a question. From your presentation, I understand we expect a boom in our industrial development, not only with the critical minerals, but also within the industry in general, with assumed shortage of personnel. So I would like to ask how interested the potential students are when they enroll. Do they enroll into your school? We participate in recruitment activities, events, when we promote our school of mining. We try to bring home the idea that mining has been existent for years, and now the mining industry focuses mostly not focuses heavily on IT disciplines. So mining is not necessarily about working in the field, working in deposit. You can sit in the office and distantly, remotely manage your mine, which is located 500 kilometers away. And you can sit in the office at your desk and operate 2 or 3 drilling machines by using computer. We try to bring home these ideas to our potential students to entice them. Usually, what they know about mining is a coal pit and miners with a dirty face. But now the picture is different. Even taking virtual reality, you can imagine and you can see what is a mine, body of mine, or ore body. And I didn't have enough time to show you how virtual reality works in our classes. You can virtually demonstrate an explosion and other mining operations, making this school and these disciplines more attractive to our potential students. Thank you, Sergey. It's our last presentation. Before we discuss the answers you gave in your survey, last call if you have any questions to the speakers of this session. It looks like we do not have any questions, so let's see the opinion of the audience. The first question, industrial. Are you a representative of the industry? 80%. Question number 2, how would you assess the current level of ESG in the mining sector in Kazakhstan? We have different answers. Only 20% of respondents gave an answer that the industry is very active, 40% ranked it as medium, and low level 40%. Environmental problems and extreme natural incidents are typical for the mining industry or affect the mining industry in Kazakhstan. Air pollution, soil pollution, deficit of water resources, scarcity of drinking water, 50-50, but still consider it relevant, ecosystems degradation. intensive floods, climate change, and all of the above. Some people still believe that it's not a critical moment. Which of the challenges are most relevant for the mining industry in Kazakhstan? Well, almost all of your responses show that the aspects are critical. Owners are aimed at the maximum revenue, low production level, cost, high costs of production, and others, apart from illegal subsoil use. Thanks. Which of the practices are most critical for achievement of sustainable development in your company? Before we have a workshop on decarbonization, I would refer to the difference in your opinion. Please join our seminar where you will have a chance to go into details of decarbonization to discuss the issue. Other aspects are considered as key and critical. Question number 5. Which practices of corporate and social responsibility are introduced in your company? Human rights, yes, it's a common trend. Practices and technologies for health and safety, consultations with the local communities, development of local communities. We have different opinions here. Some of you answered that they are not prioritized by your company. Biodiversity, 100% yes, or to some extent as a minimum. Cooperation with educational institutions, activities, trainings on a regular basis, and non-financial reports, publications also performed by many companies. And further are just comments. I would like to thank all the participants. If you have any questions, please, this is the final call. Well, then we will conclude with that.
Hello and welcome to the session on best sustainability practices in action. In this session, we'll be exploring the current state of sustainability in the mining industry in Kazakhstan. Which challenges are most acute for the mining industry in Kazakhstan? Is it the focus on maximizing profits at any cost, low production efficiency, or perhaps the high level of environmental pollution? Which practices are most important for achieving sustainability in your enterprise? Energy-saving technologies, renewable energy sources, or maybe land reclamation and ecosystem restoration? We have invited top experts to address these hotly disputed questions. Are you ready to make a positive impact as well? We invite you to participate in our sustainability survey. Please scan the QR code to open the questions. Your participation is completely voluntary, and your responses will be kept confidential. Thank you.